everyone, welcome to ReedPop's Metaverse event where we're breaking the fourth wall to bring convention entertainment to the comfort of your home. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics, and it is my extreme pleasure to bring to you favorite comic book moments and how they inspired you. We've got the best here joining us today. First off, let me give some love to Khary Randolph. That's my guy. He's coming in. He's going to be repping. We got Greg Capullo, and of course, Scott Snyder. We're about to chat it up. Get ready, guys. It's about to happen. Gents, how are we doing?
What up? What up?
How are we surviving 2020? You guys,
I want to get out of this quarantine.
Tell me how you really feel, Greg. I gotta feel it. I feel like you were holding back a little bit.
Yeah, I always hold back.
I know. Are you guys staying safe, sane in this crazy 2020 world that we're in right now?
Yeah, we're not stupid. We're doing the right thing in this household. You know what I mean? We're wearing masks when we go out and can't social distance and cleaning and disinfecting, washing our hands, doing all that stuff, trying to be patriotic and stop the spread so we can get our country back.
There we go. Scott, how are you doing? I know you got little ones at the house.
Yeah, we're good. We're going a little stir crazy. It's like it's like a zoo of little boys running around. But we're the same thing as Greg was saying. We're really grateful that New York is doing well, and we're trying to be real careful. And but we're just urging everybody to stay safe. So we're excited to do an event like this that allows you to get a little access and where we can talk and connect with people remotely and still make sure that everybody's being healthy.
I love that. Khary?
I mean, Victor, as you know, I'm a comic book nerd, so I didn't leave the house anyways. So there really wasn't much of a difference. I just, I talk to people.
I'm feeling attacked right now. I'm feeling attacked by our lifestyle choice.
I mean, as a matter of fact, I feel like you guys are a little too close to me at the moment. Give me a little more space. You know what I'm saying?
Back.
Be okay.
Khary, if I didn't read the news, I wouldn't know anything about this pandemic.
Oh my goodness, that is so true. The freelance life, man. Everybody else is now catching up to our vibe. Okay, so the thing that we're here to talk about is some of the work that has existed that has inspired all of us, right? To want to pick up pen, to write down words. First of all, I got to know, what was your very first comic book that you experienced? What was the first one to get you in here? We'll start with you, Scott.
Oh, me? Oh, man. Well, my parents still have it was an oversized version of the Hulk versus Batman, like the beautiful Jorge Garcia Lopez. Yeah. And I don't remember who wrote it. Whatever, but I just love the art so much of that. It was like Batman and the Hulk meet. I think it was like at the Winter Olympics or something like that. And then on top of that, it was the Shaper of Worlds, and it had these like Picasso references, and it was amazing. But my parents still have it, and it has my crayon marks on it, like from when I'm 6-7 years old. So it was my literal first comic. It's oversized for like a child to completely mess up. And so that was my very first one. If we're talking like real origin stories.
That was it. Khary, what about you?
The first comic book I remember my mom taking me to see Return of the Jedi when in the theater. So that was 1983, which means I was 4. And I remember coming back and being like obsessed with Star Wars and thinking it was like the craziest thing in the world. And so I think she saw this and just bought me a Star Wars comic book. And I remember, I could barely read at the time, but I just flipped through the pages constantly until I basically tore it apart. And I'm pretty sure that's the first comic book. I mean, before 4 years old, I don't think I was reading much anyways. So, but yeah, I think that was the first I ever read, and it's kind of been on since then.
Nice. Greg, what about you?
I had an older cousin, and I remember one of the books that he handed down was Adam Strange, and in that little bundle, I'm sure there was Superman, Batman, whatever, and so it was mostly DC stuff. I think my cousin had, but to me, I was a little kid, so I was just looking at pictures like Khary said. But I have to say the pictures are the most important part anyway.
Ooh.
And
Shots fired.
And then I was very poor and growing up on welfare and all that, my mother would drag me downtown shopping, and there was one store that was doing what you're not supposed to do. Is you remember when the comics wouldn't sell, they tear the cover off, they get some money back.
Yep.
Well, this guy was packaging like 3 or so comics in cellophane, so you didn't know what you're going to get for like a quarter, whatever it was. So my mother would get me that, and so you didn't know what you were going to get. So those were my first comics. So I don't know exactly what my first comics were. All I knew is I got hooked and addicted, and I'm old enough to remember spinner racks. So they'd be at the drugstore, they'd be all over the place, and so mom would be doing her own thing, and I'd just be drooling over all these comic books, so I can't cite a specific one. It's just, other than I remember Adam Strange, that was pretty vivid because that was in the very first comics, but I don't have a recollection of the story or anything like that,
I love it.
It was real scattershot for a little while.
I mean, that's really how comics, were distributed for a time. So I totally understand. In fact, I have a spinner rack right behind me right now in my office. So it's a classic feature of the comic book medium. I totally understand. Okay, so where were you when you knew that you wanted to be a part of comics? When you knew that either the pen or the word was going to be your thing? What got you there? Khary, we'll start with you.
I know for me, the turning point for me where it went from like, oh, this is a cool thing to like where I wanted to be a part of this, it was definitely it was Image Comics. Like I remember specifically, like I was into comics before that. Like
right.
I had X-Men comics and I had Batman comics, and but I remember when Image first came out, I remember I was reading a video game magazine and they had like a whole like article about Image Comics and how it was like changing everything. And I just remember seeing the covers, and it was specifically the color of like Spawn #1. It was
I think
like
we got that image. Let's bring that up. Let's check that out.
Yeah, that color right there, like it to this day, that red was like I had never seen a red that red before. Like I was just like, that looks crazy to me. So I remember going to the comic book shop looking for Spawn #1. And like, of course, it was sold out. But instead, I got like, I remember specifically, it was like Wildcats #3, Cyberforce #2, and Youngblood #4. And I went home and I was just like pouring over these comic books for like, it felt like weeks. Like I was just like, I'd never seen anything like that before. It was just like, there was comics before that for me, and then there was
right.
comics after that for me. And then like the next week, I went back for more comics, and the next week I went back, and it was like an addiction.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that. You got that first hit, and it was on.
Because I mean, I was into it before, but it was
right.
And something about those comics spoke to me on like such a level where I was like, I want to draw like those guys. And I literally just started copying from them like at that moment. And it's kind of just been ever since. I've just been literally trying to recreate that excitement that I had when I was 13 for like another generation of kids behind me. And that's kind of like the high I've been searching ever since.
I love that. Now, speaking of, artwork that really appeals to the teenager, you got another sample here that we're going to talk about. What is it? Youngblood #1? Yeah. Talk to me. Why was this one another feature that was really inspirational to you?
Well, because Rob Liefeld to me was like, he seemed like he was still a kid. Like all those other guys seemed like adults to me. But like Rob seemed like a kid. He was cool. And he had like, he drew characters that looked like G.I. Joes to me. And the fact that this dude had a Levi's commercial. Like that
that was the one that got you?
Okay. That was it. Because I was
Spike Lee shot Levi commercial.
That commercial changed my life because I was like, I want to be a rock star like that dude.
Yo, from now on, I'm bringing Levi's to shows for Rob to sign just to make him uncomfortable. Maybe I've worn them, maybe I haven't. Scott, let's go with you. Obviously, from a writer standpoint, there's a difference in terms of what necessarily makes us click. But what was it that did it for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say it really was the 1986. It was like, you know, Dark Knight Returns, and then Year One right after that. And it was also right around that same time I read Sandman. And it was that kind of moment when I realized that comics, because I love comics already and I had been picking them up forever, but it was the moment when you realize they could sort of surprise you beyond what you thought the stories were that they always told. And the idea of being a writer artist. So I wanted to be an artist and a writer all the way through high school. Actually, like the college I went to, the whole reason I went there in Providence was that I wanted to be able to take art classes nearby. So I was determined to do both for a really long time. So I would say Dark Knight Returns is probably the book that, I know it's cliche, but it really did change my world, just because it made me also understand how immediate these characters could be. I mean, I grew up in New York City in the 80s, and even though it was a futuristic version of Gotham, there was a kind of relevance, or a feeling at least of kind of anger, all these kinds of, the city was falling apart, all these different things that were in the air at that moment, at least to a kid, you know, that was 8 or 9, or that feeling of like not being allowed to go to Central Park or do this or that, those kinds of things. And so there was a feeling at that moment of immediacy to it. So all of it kind of came together and made me sort of feel like these superheroes could speak to things at that moment, that you could do things that were really unbound when it came to expectations about what was allowed. And it just opened up my mind to kind of what was possible. So I would say right around then, when I was about 9, is when I realized this is what I wanted to do. Because and then that led me to all these other things, like Khary was saying. I mean, soon after it was Image, but at the same time too, it was Vertigo at that moment, Swamp Thing, and all those kinds of things too. So it was this sort of sudden blooming of possibility that came with, you know, how broad the horizon was for comics and graphic literature right around that moment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Greg, what about you, man?
It wasn't just comics. You know, I was absorbing all the comics, and there was also Mad Magazine that was exciting me. Like Mort Drucker would do these amazing caricatures. He would, you know, do satire on the movies that were out at the time, and I was just mesmerized by that cat. And so those were my two worlds. And I remember at like 8 years old, knowing that's what I wanted to do, and saying to my cousin who started this infection, I go, do you think I'll, you know, draw some? You think I'll be good enough someday to draw? And then he'd go, I don't know, you know, because, you know, it's a crappy little kid, you know, and he had friends who could draw superheroes like I wanted to draw superheroes. He had one friend who could do that. Anyway, so it was very young, 8 years old, that I go, I really want to do this. And then, you know, so that bug never left me. And throughout school, you know, when Frank Miller came on with Daredevil, that was mind-blowing storytelling to me. I was like, wow. And, you know, and then we had Byrne on Fantastic Four, and I go, never see anything like that. And, you know, and Walt Simonson came on the left field with his style on Thor, and I'm like, wow. It started at 8, and the fire just kept growing. The more stuff, and the older you get, you appreciate more and more stuff. And then, of course, I always, like Scott mentioned, Dark Knight Returns. To me, that was like such amazing storytelling. And it's a story, sadly, I'm learning as I grow older. It has more and more meaning as I get older. You know, it's like when it sticks with me now. You know, when he's brawling in the mud pit, and he goes, and then he shows me what a fast kick is. It's like, yeah, because I used to be at the martial arts, and if I could try and fight some young kid, he's going to show me what a fast kick is. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh my God, it's happening. Except, yeah, I don't have Batman skills. So, you know, all of it. The fire started when I was 8. Knew that's what I wanted to do, and I wouldn't let anybody tell me I couldn't do it. I had everybody telling me that I wasn't going to do it, including, you know, a pastor going, you know, it doesn't look like it's God's will, Greg. And I go, well, it's my will. And so that's it. I would not take no for an answer. It just had to happen.
That's the way. That is the way. And obviously, through your career, one of the things that you have had a significant run on was Spawn, that Khary talked about before. Obviously, working on a title like that, you develop a lot of style and taste like that. Was there something really special that you pulled from your time working on Spawn that has really shaped you as a storyteller?
You know, it's all a journey. You absorb from everything, you know, and, you know, I was lucky that in the era that I was trying to get into comics, you know, I had a lot of great tutors, including John Romita Sr. So, I mean, and Jim Shooter and Larry Hammond. So I had all these guys give me, you know, great advice and pointers. Working with Todd was a different thing because he opened my mind to different ways I could approach storytelling. And but I found that as much as, you know, I have a, you know, large bag of tricks, you have to your writer affects that, you know, like a lot of things that I would like to do the way Scott writes, I can't do it, like, because he just writes in a style that doesn't lend itself to some of the things I like to do and did do on Spawn. So, you know, you adapt and you change and you grow. But Todd opened my eyes to different ways. And the great thing about working with Todd was, even though that was his baby, he never, ever tried to say I couldn't do this way or that way. And so I look at my own work and I look at it with my wife and I go, I can't believe I drew stuff so whacked out, you know, because I went through all these different stages while I was drawing the book. My style just changed constantly. And I remember there was one stage, and Todd never slapped me down, whereas I went only for the spatial resonance of the thing. So, you know, the head could be completely deformed, but I was looking at negative space and going by just visceral feeling. And I look at that now and I go, oh my God, it's like I was on acid. I've never done acid, but I assume that's what it's like. And so that was the cool part, man. He let me explore. And one of the best compliments he told me, because he taught me a lot of visual tricks that you can get in and out of storytelling more rapidly to make the pages go by, especially when you're under a deadline. And he said I became the master of it. He goes, the student became the master because I turned in storytelling. And he'd go, oh, wow, but it's not really cheating; it's stylizing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know,
that's a huge compliment.
Really what it is. And
right.
He said
I'm gonna need you to teach me some of those tricks.
Yeah. We will need that art book coming out ASAP because
my editors will appreciate it, I think.
Yeah. But you know, Scott, he's going, well, I'm gonna teach this kid something. So he's always trying to go, here's a few more links on that chain to weigh you down, slow you down.
Well, I mean, you guys have created some like incredibly seminal pieces that obviously will inspire generations to come. And we've got a couple samples of those. Let's talk about some of these pieces that you guys have put together. And let's talk about, like, from the writing standpoint and the art standpoint, what are we seeing here? What are we getting from this?
Okay.
Well, I think, you know, when we were talking about sort of the panel being about inspiring moments, I mean, I kind of paid my dues while I was working in prose to get back into comics. So my ride in comics I was super lucky. I got in at a moment when they sort of had an opening on Batman, and I was totally unequipped to write it, all those kinds of things. Like I was just given so many opportunities right off the bat. But working with Greg, one of the things that's been so amazing is having someone who's taught me both to be a better writer and a better person as we go. So with this, like with Court of Owls, I mean, we went in there and I had an idea about something that was personal to me and that meant something to me. The story really was largely about like coming back to New York, going back to my old neighborhood and realizing like nobody I knew lived there anymore. It completely changed. It had been like gentrified, you know, and the feeling was that Gotham must be the same way, where Batman might know Gotham at this particular moment or think he knows Gotham as this fictional city, but that 5 years from now, 5 years ago, you know, it would be a mystery to him. Like everything about it would be unknown. That a neighborhood or a city, but really a neighborhood only exists because of the people that live there and what they bring to it at that moment, and then it's gone. And it's just your memory of it.
Oh my God, that's so poetic.
Well,
like,
and
seriously,
there's zombie ninja owls and all kinds of stuff also that go into it. But the feeling was, you know, I was writing something I cared about, but I was still really green as a writer. And going into this, like, you know, I was writing full script, and I remember giving Greg a script for issue 1. We didn't know each other at all. Like, we had never really spoken. And so the script was like 45 or 50 pages long with like references and full script, all panel, everything. And he kept saying to me, he was like, well, if you just give me a little more room, I can do better work. So why don't you cut out, some of the words that are unimportant? And I'm like,
I didn't say it that way. I said,
They're
look,
all
kid,
important.
I
Come
just
on.
said, I said, look, kid, I don't need all this. Just give me the important words. To which he shot back, they're all important. And I said, that's not true. But anyway, go on, Scott.
This is the collaboration.
And what I'd say is like the thing I'd point out, like one of my favorite moments in comics, like one of the most inspiring things for me was when we were working on Court of Owls and we got to issue 5, which is what you're kind of showing now. And Greg had been asking for more room artistically for a while, and I was just so nervous about giving up control. And not that he listened to me anyway, but it was more just like letting go of the idea of it. And when we got here, I was like, well, let's just try it. And I was like, well, Batman needs to feel really disoriented. He's been lost in this maze for days. He doesn't know what's happening. And however you can kind of visually communicate that, maybe we go back, maybe we kind of, do something that looks on the page like it's, fractured or whatever. And Greg came up with this brilliant idea to physically turn the book, like so that you'd read as he was getting more and more disoriented, the book would almost flip. And you would read it backwards for a page or two. And it was one of those moments where I was like, God, why have I been doing it my way? And comics is all about letting go and giving room to the person that you're, not just collaborating with, but you're creating with. I mean, it's co-created. And that idea of just
froze.
More we give, the more it appeals to the other person, the better it's going to be, even if that means adapting your own style. And so that moment for me was one of those ones that I feel like not only taught me something about how to be a better writer, and I've carried with me book to book going forward, but just about life, in general too. Like I feel like a lot of the lessons along the way with writing comics the last 11, 12 years at DC and indie and stuff have been bigger than just like how to write a better issue and that stuff. And I really, give credit to Greg for being the best like Jedi mentor or whatever.
I love it.
That you have in that regard.
Thanks, man.
I love it. Now, okay, so this page right here, Batman on a motorcycle, this is hugely inspirational, like super iconic. Is one of my favorite, pieces from the run because it carries so much action, so much tone. What was it like to come up with this particular image?
For me?
Yes.
That wasn't the most exciting thing to do.
What?
The Court of Owls stuff. No, the Court of Owls stuff where he's in the maze, which I got a couple of those pages. We can go back and look at some of that. I mean, that's where interesting storytelling comes in. That's a jerk shot, a money shot, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But I mean, that's sort of like the easiest thing. I mean, you come up with a decent composition, the right angle, and there it kind of is, and it's like, that's the stuff that got me wanting to do comics. But being in comics, the thing that really turns me on, especially the older I get, is the storytelling aspect of it. The camera angles you choose, the number of panels, shapes of the panels, how you got, all that to me is so much more exciting and more difficult to pull off than the splash shots, because, we've all grew up watching the splash shots. So we all sort of know how to do it, right? We all sort of know how to do it. You go, this that excites me. It's in your face. So to me, the fun of that was not the motorcycle jumping with Batman on it, which you go, that's the fun part. It was the crowd, how the crowd was reacting to him, and putting a diverse, character base in there. So you got all different kinds of people from all different walks of life and all reacting to this motorcycle that's all of a sudden jumping over their head. So to me, the fun of that wasn't the motorcycle. It was the crowd. It was the crowd in the bleachers.
I love that. As the technician, you do gain a different appreciation for, the experience. Obviously, us as the fans, we're looking at Batman and we're going, this is amazing. But, obviously,
and it is. It's cool.
Yeah. Khary, throw in on this one. Obviously, as a fellow artist, you look at something like this. Do you first draw or go to the storytelling aspects that are in the background? Or are you just like us where we're like fan out first or what? How do you see it?
I mean, as far as creating, you mean, or as a fan?
Either one.
I mean, as a creator, I think I actually echo what Greg says. Like when I first came into comics, I was always trying to draw like the splash pages first because I was like, that's the coolest thing in the book. That's what I want to do. But now I kind of leave those to the last because I don't care about them that much. I really do. Like, I'm so focused on trying to get my storytelling to a degree where it impresses on hopefully multiple levels. Like, I want it to be entertaining, but I also want you to come back to it later and be like, oh wait, he threw that character in a couple pages before so that it would play off a couple pages later, and do things like that where you see little things that you see on the second or third or fourth reading even. That's the stuff that's interesting to me. The splash pages themselves, while I think they're cool for the reader, they're just kind of like, they're fine. You know, like it's weird to say that, but as soon as Greg said that, I was like, yeah, I actually agree. Like, the other page is way more interesting.
You know, and to add on to what Khary said, I mean, it's also, I mean, the way you choose to put it out there, you know, the camera angles, where you place that camera is very important, and all these different things act on a subconscious level to the viewer. And so it's sort of like if you look at a picture frame on the wall that's, you know, not quite hanging right, you know, so you can identify that. So with storytelling, you put all these subliminal things, so they're all, looks like all the pictures are hung right, but they're very specific reason, and they're all having an effect on you. These varies, like I said, and when you bring up the Court of Owls show, I'll speak to a couple examples. And so they don't even know why they're reacting to that picture on the wall and how it's hung. They just you're getting the reaction out of it.
You are getting it.
Yeah, you're getting it on there. Yeah. They don't know why they feel a certain way. I'm hoping they feel a certain way. But that's, you know, so when those pages come up, I'll address specific camera angles. Why I did it.
So like we've got the one up right now that has the giant owl.
To me, that's this big. It's big. I can't see it.
Let's see. I don't know if there's a way for us to make that absolute bigger.
It's the owl fountain one.
Yeah.
Right,
the owl fountain.
I know it's the fountain one. I just
there we go.
It's too small. Let me see if I get magnifying on it.
There we go.
That's not even enough. No, it's the size of a postage stamp.
Oh man. Well, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to wait till we can get together so we can really parse this out and really break it down. We got a couple more pieces.
I'll try and give you by my recollection.
Okay,
of that thing, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on it. Okay, so he's going to be drinking from the tainted water that's around that fountain. It's hallucinogenic in it. So I mean, I'm trying to remember. So he, you know, first thing is picking interesting camera angles that, you know, excite you. I mean, like when he dips his hand in the water, I mean, you could have put the camera up behind him, on top of the water, whatever. I went under the water entirely so that it's a more interesting shot of the glove going in, and the bubbles are all, you know, coming off of the glove, going into the water to scoop up. And then there's one shot while he's drinking, I come behind the claw of the owl, and you go, okay, so that solves a couple things. That's putting the large object in the foreground to give some depth, but also being it's a talon, it also is like dangerous. You know what I mean? So while he's drinking that water, you also have a feeling of danger. I could have went from a different angle behind the wing or above the head, but that talon in the foreground makes that a little more threatening, so that bad stuff is happening. So it's those kind of things that I was trying to relate to what I was saying. These things that you try and plant in their subconscious that draws an effect out of them without them knowing that it's an effect, because the picture's hung straight. They don't see the crooked, right? So it just goes in, and they don't know why they're having this effect. And I'm hoping it has an effect. I really plot those kind of shots out to try and elicit a response.
Speak to that too, just for a minute. Like, it's fascinating to hear the artist, you know, sort of talk in that direction, because it's the same for writing, where even going back to Dark Knight Returns, you know, for me, when I was a kid, it was the big moments, the big, you know, when he fights the mutant leader and, like, you know, takes him down, or when the tank Batmobile shows up on the hill and that stuff, all of it. Like, and those things are still amazing, you know, I mean, there's no argument there. But that said, when I go back and I look at it now, the thing that really impresses me is, like, the first page, for example, right? That grid of, I think it's like 16 images. One of the things that's amazing about it is the entire story is contained on that first page. So when I teach, you know, and I use that book, it's not so much about like the big fun explosive moments. It's about the technique. So there, you know, it opens with some line that's kind of like, I'm in the home stretch when, you know, the readings stop making sense, so I switched to manual, something like that, right? That's the whole book, right? That's right there. It's the, you know, he's in the home stretch, he's retired, he's old, when all of nothing makes sense anymore, the city's going to hell, and so he decides he's going to go back and he switched to manual, you know? And then halfway through that page, it talks about how the sparks from the car after he switches to manual and he's trying to drive it, like go into his face, and it's like the sun, and it feels like it would be a good death, you know, and that's Superman, right? Superman, the character of the sun. And so it's the weird things, like the subtleties, that now I would point to and be like, that worked on me, even if I didn't understand how it was doing that subconsciously, versus, you know, the big moment when he's like jumping down, and everyone loves that page where he's, you know, like the jumping down with the talking about why the symbol is like a target and he's got a vest underneath, all that stuff. So it's the same experience as a writer, where you wind up gravitating towards the craftsmanship that goes with the kind of the subtle emotional psychological machinations of it, versus the kind of big bombastic, you know, fun.
Frank Miller, man, he's amazing.
Right. And again, speaking to the whole point of the panel here is how even those iconic moments can be something so very intricate, so very thought out, that's what really sticks with you, especially as you grow, not just as a fan, but as a practitioner. The things that you appreciate become those little things that you now understand, you know, better, the work that went into it. So that's kind of amazing. Obviously, anyone that's watching, take that in, you know, look at those quieter moments, because that's probably the thing that you'll appreciate the most as you pursue. We got a couple more images from you guys that I definitely want to make sure that we get to. One of them is probably one of my favorites, because it just kind of it creeps me out. So when we get to that one, I will point that out. Let's see, we've got some pieces here. I think this is from 0 Year. Is that where we are right here?
I can't see him. I don't know what's up there.
That's last night.
That one's last night. Yeah.
I mean, I think going back to like what we were saying before, and one of the things that it's fun, like thinking back on I got to go with Khary when we were doing the Robin Wars and the stuff with Duke and everything when we were first introducing him and all that stuff too, is that, you know, sometimes you're under constraints when you want to do things and create characters, and you know, you're working under kind of a bit of a gauntlet, and that's fun, and the challenge of working at places that are like DC. And then other times you get a sort of sudden freedom. And I think one of the things that's been interesting for Greg and me is the more that we've done, the more freedom I guess for granted. Right. So with Last Night on Earth, one of the big
That's only because of the fans, buddy. It's only because of the fans. If the fans weren't in our corner like they are, we won't be able to do more and more like we've been allowed to do. You know?
No, and you always say it. You're like, we're employed by DC, but we work for the fans, and it's true, you know. But they give us more and more freedom to kind of do what we believe in with characters, and so now we're at a place where we can kind of really, you know, journey into much more sort of boundless, imaginative places with the characters, even when we're doing an event like death metal or that stuff like we're doing now. And it's so interesting because it makes me think back on the books that inspired me in the first place. Like, again, like wanting to get into comics because of Dark Knight Returns, Hellboy, Sandman. Those are, whether or not they're using licensed characters or making up their own, you know, cast, they're still really taking a tremendous amount of creative latitude in their storytelling, visually, you know, narratively, all of it. And so it's a strange place to be, like when you come full circle and you realize, oh, the stuff that made me want to get into this more constrictive zone is now, you know, now I'm in a place with my partner that allows me to do more of this kind of expansive storytelling. And it's a great joy. So yeah, with now we're in a place where I feel like we can really go anywhere, and it really is, yeah, like Greg said, you know, we owe it all to the fans. Absolutely. For kind of taking the whole trip with us. So it's been a lot of fun.
And obviously the foray into the dark metal universe, and we've got an image up right now. That is definitely a showcase of how wild you guys have gone. Is there anything that you can kind of hint at before we get out of here of things that we're going to see coming up in the follow-up?
Well, some of it's already been seen that we've created some more Dark Knights, and I'm sure we have some more coming on the way. So, I mean, that's to me, that's one of the most fun aspects of what I do, is because, and Khary can back me up, I'm sure, is when you're a little kid, man, you're like totally free, right? There's no pressures, no deadlines, nobody telling you what's right and wrong. You're just a kid on the floor with your pencil and your pad, just having fun, just cutting loose and designing characters and having fun doing that stuff. And so when you get an opportunity to design the character, it's that same kind of joy that you have when you're a kid creating something out of nothing and trying to make it look cool and something that people will think is cool and exciting looking. So to me, that creating those Dark Knights was one of the most fun things. Anytime I get to create new characters, that's just joy right there.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
To add to that, because I got a chance to do a little bit in the Dark Knight Metal universe myself, and I got to play with Greg's Harley Quinn redesign, which was like just an honor, man. I had so much fun working on that thing, man. I had a blast working on that. That has nothing to do with anything. I just throw that out there. So.
well, obviously we want to give you a chance to plug Excellence, because that is a phenomenal series. You got the hat on right now,
I'm a corporate shill.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that. What can we expect from that series other than the heartbreak that you alluded to later or earlier?
Yeah, we look forward to breaking everyone's hearts and emotions. If you like any characters in this book, buckle up, because we're gonna
This is the most ominous thing ever.
Do I know
my goodness
the book or what?
Yeah, you do. Guys, I appreciate you so much for talking about the iconic moments that inspired you and creating some yourself. If there's anything that you wanted to share with fans one last time before we get out of here, whether it's a note of advice or encouragement, Khary, we'll start with you.
Wear a damn mask, man. What's wrong with you?
Man, come on. Say it again, louder for the folks in the back.
Wear a damn mask. Have a good day.
First off, I miss everybody. You know what I mean? I love my fans, love hugging them, taking pictures with them, talking with them, shooting the shit, making them laugh, them making me laugh, whatever, like that. But for any creators who want, kids who want to be creators, adults who want to be creators, want to get into the business, you got to go hard and heavy and don't let anybody tell you no, right? Because what people do is they put their limitations on you. When somebody tells you can't do something, it's because they don't think they can do it. And, so you got to dismiss that, because at the end of the day, you don't want to look back at your life and go, what would have happened if I had tried? So you owe it to yourself, just so you don't have that regret later on, to just push for all that you're worth, gamble all your chips. Don't worry about, is it going to make me money? Because, if you get bogged down with that, you're going to lose sight. Make yourself the best creator, best writer, best artist, best colors, best, whatever you want to do. Make sure you're the strongest cat at it, because there's a little dog bowl and a lot of dogs want to get at it. And that's it, man. Build yourself up, make yourself strong, and pursue that goal. And don't let anybody tell you can't do it. When they tell you that, you give them one of those and you keep.
There you go. Scott.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, than both these guys. I feel like the takeaway for me is that the inspiring moments that we're all listing were also really uncertain moments. Like when you go back and you think about what it took to leave and make Image, or you think about, I read the letters right now, like when I'm feeling bad about or nervous about something I'm doing, I'll go back and I'll read like the letters that were written about Dark Knight Returns #1, where it's like, I'm dropping DC Comics forever because this is, blasphemy and so on and so forth. So all these things that now canonically we look back and say, oh, these meant something to me. And of course they did, because now they're part of comics history, were risky. And they were things that, people really went out on a limb for because they believed in them as creators. And that's true of so many things happening nowadays. I mean, I know that, there's so much, there's so much kind of back and forth in the comics community. But one thing I feel like that's just a kind of absolute truth is that there's more great, inspiring, diverse, different kinds of work happening in graphic literature than ever before. You have access to it, through web comics all the way to, you know, stuff that's just scholastic, that's like books published in bookstores. And so whatever it is that means something to you, examine it in terms of why, because what, you know, I would guess, and I think that what these guys would argue too, is that it's doing something that's taking a risk and for the sake of being personal. And that to me is what makes those inspiring moments. It's, you know, getting out of your comfort zone and doing something, whether it's like admitting that your artist is a better storyteller than you, or it's like, or
At least you're honest,
you know,
man.
something with a character that people might not be comfortable, you know, and doing something that the hardcore fans might not be comfortable with the characters, well, you know, all those things. So look at it, and I'll bet you it's something that wasn't safe. And so don't be safe, you know, go out there and make comics that you're gonna love.
Oh man, that's so very well said. On that note, we can wrap this up. Scott, Greg, Khary, thank you guys so much for sharing your time, experience, and talent with us. I'd like to thank our host ReedPop for bringing us together. I'm Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics, saying thank you to all the fans watching. One time for Metaverse, y'all. Peace.
Peace.